Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome to the Manifest and Chill podcast. This is our final episode, not only in our Sacred Slowdown series, but for 2025. I started this podcast back in July, and we are finishing out the year together. And I thought it was only fitting that I placed this episode on the last date, December 31st of 2025. For those of you that are new here, I am Tracy Ftacek, and I honestly cannot believe we are already here at the end of this chapter together. But we've got another chapter coming, right? 2026. Over the past month, we have talked about permission to rest, reviewing your year with appreciation instead of criticism, and why systems, not personal failure, are burning women out. Today, we're closing the year and the Sacred Slowdown series with something that matters very deeply to me: how to end this year with grace instead of guilt. And I want to name something most personal development conversations avoid altogether. December depression is really real. And pretending it isn't is one of the reasons so many high-achieving women end the year feeling like they somehow failed, even after everything they carried and accomplished. So if you're sitting there thinking you should feel more grateful, more energized, or more excited about what's next, this episode is going to be for you. Today isn't about fixing your feelings. It's about completing the year honestly, so you don't drag unprocessed pressure and emotions into the next one. So today's December 31st, and I'm sitting in my home watching the winter light disappear far too early over the last, we all know how many days. The sky turns gray before dinner. There's a pile of client notes sitting on my desk that's been there for several days. And somewhere in the background is that familiar pressure to write a year-end reflection filled with wins and losses. But if I'm honest, I feel heavy. Not because anything is wrong, not because something bad happened, just because it's December. And regardless of how successful things have been, this has been my most successful year in launching Manifest and Chill 2 years ago. But the weight of this year, there's been emotional backlog and quiet expectation to feel grateful when what you really want is rest. And I've seen this in so many of the women I work with and so many of my friends in my inner circle. And I caught myself doing the thing so many women are trained to do. The shoulds. I shouldn't feel this way. I have so much to be grateful for. Other people have it worse. I should be more positive. Here's what I know to be true after decades of Decembers. What most people call December depression, my friends, it is often an end-of-year emotional backlog. Everything this last year that you did not have time to feel finally shows up when the pace slows. Seasonal energy shifts are real. Completion fatigue, it's real. And trying to guilt yourself out of low energy only deepens the exhaustion. Today, I want to talk about how to honor December, honor the closing out of a year and entering into a new year without shaming yourself. How to complete 2025 with grace. And how to end this year as a whole human, not a productivity machine that never powers down. Let's say this clearly. December is hard. Not busy, not stressful, hard. The days are shorter, which completely disrupts our circadian rhythms. The vitamin D levels drop, which I always tend to up my vitamin D, especially this month, affecting mood and energy. And you're carrying 11 months of decisions, adaptation, emotional labor, and responsibility. And culturally, we ask women to do the opposite of what their bodies need, not listen to their cycles. We tell them it's the most wonderful time of the year. There's even a song, holiday song about it. Finish strong, be grateful, and get excited for what's next. How many times are we sick of people asking, what are you excited about for 2026? This creates what I call the December integration gap. Your body wants to slow down and process. The world demands performance and positivity. So some women will override their exhaustion. Been there, done that, refuse to do it again. They force gratitude they do not feel, and they smile through the heaviness. And then they feel guilty for feeling guilty. Here's the truth. There is nothing wrong with you for feeling low in December. Your body is biologically wired for seasonal slowdown, and honoring that isn't laziness, it's intelligence. One of my clients came to me into a December session on the verge of tears, saying she felt like such a failure, that she should feel proud, but her energy is depleted and she simply feels empty. Her year, I will tell you, was extraordinary. Promotions, growth, visibility, but her nervous system was absolutely exhausted. December wasn't the problem. December simply created enough space for her body to feel what it had been carrying all year. The relief was immediate. She wasn't failing at gratitude. She was integrating her year. And that's what December is actually for. Let's talk about the pressure to finish strong. This belief that success requires one last push, one more sprint, one more burst of output before the calendar flips, right? Finish Q4 strong. That's just a performance metrics. Finishing with grace, my friends, that's an integration practice. And I'm going to use an analogy we've all heard before. And if this is your first time, I'm so glad I'm sharing it with you. Trees don't finish strong by growing more leaves in winter. They have let go. They use winter to conserve. They go dormant. And that dormancy, I would never consider it failure, would you? I don't think anyone does. It's preparation time. Yet so many high-achieving women try to override this wisdom. I know I've done it too. Years ago, I pushed through December launches, commitments, and expectations. And by January, my body shut down. That's when I learned something critical. Pushing through December doesn't set you up for January success. It sets you up for January exhaustion. And here's something I see every single year. Women rest in December, feel better for a moment, and then they recreate the same patterns in January because nothing underneath has been redesigned. Rest helps you recover, but integration is what actually changes how you work, how you lead, and how you make decisions in the next year. And this brings me to what I call the art of imperfect completion. Imperfect completion, it's the final phase of energy alignment. It's how you integrate before you initiate again. Let me say that again. It's how you integrate before you initiate again. And this is what it looks like. So grab your pen and paper, because here we go. Acknowledge what you carried. Not just what you achieved, but the emotional labor, uncertainty, and constant adaptation. Honor growth that didn't come with applause. And what does that look like? Well, that looks like boundaries. That looks like healing. That looks like self-trust. Release what doesn't belong in the next chapter. What can we release? Other people's disappointment, old guilt, and unrealistic expectations. Number 4, create for yourself a completion ritual, not for productivity, but for the nervous system closure. And give yourself permission to feel everything. You can be grateful and tired at the same time. You can be proud and disappointed. The duality of life, you can be hopeful and unsure. Completion doesn't require a resolution. That's why it's led with grace. It only requires honesty. Grace isn't perfection. Grace is self-respect. I'm going to say that again. Grace isn't perfection. Grace is self-respect. This year, grace looked like honoring my intuition even when it cost me opportunities. Listening to my body instead of overriding it, and choosing alignment over optics. Years ago, I would have called those failures. Now, I call them leadership. This is the work I've done with myself and with hundreds of other women, learning to measure success by alignment instead of output. Grace is trusting yourself enough to stop performing for the calendar. And that's what I want for you. Here's how I want to invite you to complete 2025. Write yourself a letter, a completion letter. Start with dear and your name, this year you, and then write these out. Write what you carried. Write what you learned, what you survived, what you're still processing. And then end with, thank you for getting us here. Now there's another step to that. I'm going to ask you and invite you to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for missed goals. Forgive yourself for late boundaries. And forgive yourself for being human in a world that rewards exhaustion. And if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, but I don't want to repeat this year again, the next thing I'd suggest isn't goal setting. It's clarity. I created a short diagnostic quiz that helps you understand where your energy is actually leaking and what kind of support you need going into the next year and the next season. It's not based on personality. It's not based on hustle. It's based on how you've been operating and what your nervous system has been carrying. I'm going to put the link to it in the show notes. It's no pressure to take the quiz. It's free and it's just information. But information is power. And information is data that you can move forward with. So this episode, it isn't about doing December right, ending the year right, and starting the next year right. It's about completing the year in a way that actually prepares you for what's next. In January and February, we'll be talking a lot more about how to redesign your work and leadership so you don't end next year in the same place. And guess what? You don't have to optimize your humanity, you don't have to earn rest, and you don't have to prove anything before the calendar changes. You are enough exactly as you are at the end of this year. So rest well, complete gently, and trust that this quiet ending is not a failure. It's wisdom. I'll talk to you in January. If this episode helped you choose grace over guilt, send me a DM and tell me one way you're honoring yourself this December. Until next year, remember, completion doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. Rest well, my beautiful friends. I love you all so much. And if you feel so inclined, I would love for you to leave me a review and share this with your friends. Until 2026, happiest New Year.